my cellar there's an ancient cask of wine. It's been there forever, since long before my time. And the stairs creak and moan as downward we climb. Don't you long for a taste of that deep cellar wine?
It's from a dream where I walked up the steps of this church and opened the door, and there was a priest there offering me a package. And in the package there was garments. And he said to me, if you are not willing to show up for this role, then you need to call someone else on the waiting list, which I just thought was almost funny.
I've just been surprised by the different things that have bubbled up from my unconscious. And that happens at night, and so I find it rather fascinating. And if I hear someone offer an explanation for how and why this is happening, it just makes it a lot more interesting for me.
And I realize that lots of people think it's just a neurological blip, but it's so profound when you start paying attention.
All of us dream 4 or 5 times every night. What differs is our capacity to remember them. And that's something that we can actually train ourselves to do just by having the intention that the dream has something that's valuable.
I really need this question answered. I really need help making this decision. Sometimes the answer will come to you in a dream because you have put the thought out there or the manifestation out there.
And usually talking about a more powerful dream is something very interesting. I like to debate with my friends.
I generally look things up and want to know what I'm being told and the direction and path to go. And
here's how I might work with a dream if I had an image. So I'm going to choose a tomato. If I have a dream about a tomato, I'm not going to immediately decide what that means. I could look in a book, there are books of symbols out, and I might get some ideas. But to truly let that image enter me so that I can fully understand it or embrace it, I need to spend a little time. So I might buy tomatoes. I might eat tomatoes or crush tomatoes. Was it an heirloom or aroma? How does it smell? What are my ideas or my memories about tomatoes? Did I can tomatoes with my mother? Or was I forced to eat tomatoes as a child and didn't want to? I begin to ask myself different kinds of questions. I might draw or paint the tomato. Anything that I can do around that image amplifies it. It gives me information so that the feeling that I get inside is that of what the tomato might mean for me is true for me, not true for somebody else who might have a dream about tomatoes.
So the dialogue with dreams is really dialogue with one's own soul, because dreams are one of the many ways in which the psyche communicates to us.
So I first started paying attention to my dreams when I was 8 years old, and I've been keeping journal records of my dreams since then.
But the more we work with them, the more familiar they become and the more friendly they become.
First, when I wake up in the mornings, I'll record the dreams, and then I'll sit with them over a period of anywhere from a month to years. And then when I feel compelled to, I'll sketch out a design of what I want them to look like.
We always have to examine a dream in the specific life context of that person, and to see that while dreams can be commenting on today's events or tomorrow's anticipation, they can also be touching a very timeless part of that person's journey and linking them up to the sort of unfinished story of the human journey which is unfolding through that individual's life.
This one was one where I was looking directly at my ovaries, and there were chocolates like right in front of them, as if almost like an altar was there. It was kind of supposed to be like legs, but then it turned into a sort of a wishbone. And then I realized, am I wishing for this possibility of being a parent or having a child? Something that I really was pretty much denying for most of my life.
Jung also believed that dreams tell us about the future and help us to prepare for the future. So making a study of dreams, learning to connect to our dreams, believing in our dreams, and understanding the messages from our dreams is so precious.
So this dream particularly had a significant impact on my life because it helped me realize that I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to take the risk of trying to see if I could still be a mom. And I believe that there's the wishbone aspect of it as well as the ovaries, but then also as if I'm putting out a gift to the gods and displaying chocolate is the way that I felt about it as I was creating it.
The dream is something that happens. It's an event. It's not something that we create. And it's not something that we can control. So I think of the dream as a Jungian as one of those great last frontiers of uninhabited territory where you can go and learn things about inner dynamics, learn things about your family, your community, your culture. It picks up all that material and it feeds it back in this incredibly creative, symbolic way. One of the techniques also that Jung contributed to dream analysis is that of active imagination, which involves, in essence, having a dialogue with the elements of our dream.
And any time the imagination is allowed to come into life, that in itself is nourishment.
Jung was willing to explore unknown places, and rather than steer away and be afraid of the unknown, he was willing to embrace it through creative processes, through association, through active imagination. So rather than repressing those kinds of unpleasant thoughts and feelings, he would have us lean into them to find the gold underneath.
And we live very limited incarnate lives, and so any connection with that eternal limitless dimension is nourishing, enlivening, enriching.
So the help that might be available to get access to the dreams are working with a psychoanalyst, doing dream journaling, not being afraid to tap that inner sense of myself to be able to sit with what that message from my dream might be. Writing, trying to tap into the unconscious.
Jung used to tell his dreams to some worker in the field near his house who knew nothing about psychology, and he would give him a fresh perspective and point out things that Jung could never see himself, because the dream is always showing you something that the consciousness is not quite getting. If you think the dream is just telling you something you already know, you're misinterpreting it.
So when I'm analyzing my dreams, a lot of times I may refer to a symbols book just to kind of get ideas, but in the essence, there's so many different definitions for different symbols that I can allow my psyche to know which one's the most appropriate for that moment and for that dream, and I can grab onto that.
Sometimes it will grab you and you don't know why. So that's an example of how the symbol is trying to communicate something from the deep psyche, and I don't know what it is. And I don't think anybody else knows exactly what it is.
So I can take a story that has symbols in it, or has chaoticness, or has not reality, and I can make it into five different stories that speak to 5 different areas of my life.
So Jung used the dream as a way to open up more meanings, not to reduce it down to 1 or 2 simple meanings like a detective story.
In a sense, Jungian psychology is expansive. It is not deductive. It doesn't try to put everything in a box and say, oh, that means that, or that describes how a person is only.
And so what we need to do is not literally, but symbolically understand what these images mean.
The other fun part about working with dreams is that every step in working with them brings out a new meaning and a new understanding.
When I think about my own dreams, I don't think about symbols in the dream. I think about the action in the dream.
The mood of a dream really helps in communicating to you what the message is from the unconscious. To be able to get the feeling of the dream helps you to understand what's coming through.
Let's say joy is an emotion in dreams. Even though that seems to us very positive and different from a nightmare, the intention, so to speak, is the same.
Well, there's no one interpretation of a dream. A dream is multifaceted. It's like a diamond with many facets. As you turn it into light, at different times it will reflect different things.
The dream image that each of us gets is ours alone. And how we work with it, what meaning it has for us, is specific and particular to us. One might, if one is working with an analyst or a therapist, talk about the dream in many ways, get insight from people. But I believe that only the dreamer knows what that dream means in that particular time.
The best interpretation of a dream is one that seems to touch our body, our mind, and our heart. And it has an uncanny feeling where you have a sense that, aha. Sometimes we call it the it clicks method. So other people in a dream group or friends can tell you their version of it. And oftentimes they're just free associating or projecting their own material on your dream. But when they touch on something that really feels right to you, it's an embodied emotional feeling.
As Jung once said, failing to analyze a dream is like failing to open a wise letter from the unconscious.
It's almost like we're boats going down a very busy river and we have to position our raft in the current.
It's a little disheartening at times to realize the power of the unconscious. As Jung said, whoever's discovered the power of the unconscious knows from that point on that one is not the master of one's own house. And so we have to realize there are many other inhabitants in our psychic household. And we better start paying attention to who those other personages are, what their agendas might be, and what they have in mind.
I've heard some people say that dreams are a more honest communication than the ego has because it has so many defenses and so many filters.
You can oftentimes see the direction that you're heading, and you can be redeeming parts of yourself that have been left behind in the past.
I put on the skin of my ancestors. I put on the skin of a ghost. I put on the skin of my enemies. I put on the skin I love most. I borrow the feathers of the frightened. I borrow the hooves of the fleet. I breathe so my senses are heightened. I breathe in the rage of the street. Like so many scales that clatter